Should you come here to Canada or should you stay in your home country? If you're already here, should you continue to stay or should you go to another country? Welcome in this video where I give you my point of view in terms of my experience and what I've gotten so far just living and working in this country. Canada was a land of dreams, a home for possibilities. Possibilities that were stretched beyond your view, beyond the horizon. It was a tapestry of opportunities, a place where diversity is just a word, a place where you could earn your countless dreams. But what has happened to it within the years? Should you leave Canada or should you stay in Canada? We will first of all just start by talking about rent and what is going on with housing crisis currently in Canada, and I guess in every part of the world. This is not meant to be biased, it's just meant to give you a real sense of what is happening. Within a couple of years, housing prices have soared, they've gone really high up, and it's difficult for regular ordinary people who earn a minimum salary to actually pay their rent. Of course, this varies in terms of metropolitan area, but as you can see, if you come right here just on Rent Faster, just an apartment, it could be a condo, it could be a main floor, a basement, or a house, and you're looking for a 2-bedroom house, just for instance, I don't want to include this, and you just search. This is for the Calgary region. You can see what the average price of it's around 2,200 to 2,300 Canadian dollars without including electricity. This is about 24 to 36, depending on wheresoever you're looking at. If you're looking at cities like in the outskirts, you would definitely see that the prices are still way high, right up there. You're still at about 29. Comparatively, a couple of years ago, this was not the case. But then you see the housing prices have soared, and it's even worse in BC. It's even worse in Ontario. But what is going on? According to this data, as you can see here from the National Bank of Canada, in terms of looking at the financial market, we can all see from Q3 of 2023 that there is a net deficit in terms of changing in housing affordability in 10 metropolitan areas. You can see this graph on your screen. You can see how interest rates have soared, and now home prices have also dramatically increased. And this is very difficult when you look at this other figure here in terms of perspective on housing affordability. You see that Vancouver in British Columbia is topping the list with the most expensive houses, and you can also have other cities like Toronto, in Canada and Real, and the Montreal and Calgary coming right up there. But there's been a massive influx in Calgary in the recent years, and this is definitely putting up the cost. The federal government worked with the Canada Infrastructure Bank in terms of releasing up to 35 billion in terms of budget, and this was to build from 2016 to the next 10 years in 2026. But we wonder where these building infrastructure projects have gone to. Taxes are generally high. Taxes are generally high in Canada. Canada is one of the countries that pays the highest taxes. We pay more taxes here compared to the US in general, as people would opposingly think that, oh, the US pays more taxes. The sad thing, I don't know if it's sad, it's also good in the sense that higher income tax earners will definitely pay much more taxes. If you look at from Wealthsimple, which is one of the most trusted Canadian tax calculators, if you're looking at Alberta, just for instance, and you're looking at someone who is making a salary of, say, almost $80,000 per year, the final take home is going to be $59,000, and the person is going to pay at least $20,000 in taxes per year as a whole. And if you compare that and you take someone living in Ontario and then they're making the same amount of money per month, say they're making $80,000, in general they will still pay the same. But if you look at someone who's living around Quebec, right here, you would see that someone living in Quebec and making $80,000 is gonna definitely pay $23,000 in income tax, which is really way high. And the higher you go, the higher the income brackets that you get in, and the more taxes you pay. So it's really ridiculous for the most part. And so people try to look for ways to evade taxes, but is that what people should be doing in real life sense? People should be trying to pay their taxes to support. But however, these taxes are really important because they help in building the infrastructure and according the free health services that we have, which is like a nice segue for us to transition to healthcare. It is really crazy. Something really awful is happening. The wait times to see a family physician is really on the rise in Canada. And this is not just in one province, it's literally almost in every province is in Canada. And as you can see, studies so far, according to this study that was published, the overall referral rate from January of 2014 to December of 2026, there was about 2,060 referrals. And we see exactly here that the wait times, for instance, in British Columbia, according to this result, were about 59 days. And those in Quebec was 104 days. Imagine you have a certain pathology, you need to see a doctor, a specialist physician. The wait time is this long.
Kavanaugh was first treated at an Edmonton Community Health Centre. And while an ambulance was then called to bring her to the Stollery Children's Hospital, it would take 33 hours before it got there.
The paramedics spoke with emergency and they put us right into the waiting room with everybody else. And it was another 6 to 8 hours before we got a room.
Lengthy wait times for emergency care have become all too familiar right across the country. But beyond being frustrating, those wait times are now costing lives. Last weekend, Montreal area physician Dr. Sébastien Morin shared this tragedy online. I ended my night on a patient who died in front of me with a ruptured thoracic aorta. This same patient had waited 16 hours yesterday in another hospital without being seen for his pain. He left. I couldn't do anything. He died within minutes of his arrival.
It's up to patients to tell their individual stories, but I can, share that a very similar situation with different problems is happening on average once a month in this province that I'm aware of.
According to Dr. Warren Thirsk, since May in Alberta alone, 7 patients have died waiting for emergency care.
These are people who are dying while waiting to be assessed to see what care they need.
Concerns grows over dwindling family doctor availability in Alberta. This is specific for Alberta, and as you can see exactly where we are across Alberta, there are 888 family doctors as it was listed on their website. We knew patients in 2020, and as of now, that number has decreased to 190 of family doctors are currently accepting patients into their practice. Just moving away from that, also we saw that we pay high taxes because of infrastructure. Infrastructure in Canada is really a big issue. We have, trains run well within the urban area. Say you're going downtown Toronto, you have really no problem. But I used to live in Montreal and moved to Calgary. Calgary has not a very sophisticated, railway system compared to when I used to live back in Japan, in Yokohama City, where it was really, really always on time, very sophisticated. Here, the trains sometimes, are very dirty. The buses are usually late, but it does help a lot of people as well, okay? I'm not saying that everything is all bad, but I'm saying that there is still lots that's supposed to be done in order to correct these issues. I know there might be people who just hate me for doing this, but it's all fine. If you're doing anything in this world and everyone loves you, you need to look back again and be sure, are you doing it right? Because not everyone is going to love you. Trains and infrastructure, they're not the best in Canada at the moment. And I know the Canadian government signed some funds for maintenance and infrastructure build, which are ongoing projects. But again, till then, we're still having issues with late buses and sometimes fighting and aggression on these buses. As we have seen healthcare with all these international medical graduate and foreign healthcare workers who come to Canada, but they're unable to get into the system. Even though they are really qualified, sometimes they have passed the qualifying steps for the exams, but the process is just so complex in order to let them get in and start exerting and helping Canadians. And the wait time is so long, the pay is low, the physicians that are currently there and they're working, they have lots of burnout that they report. This should be a problem that should be fixed. And that leads us to the point of brain drain. Brain drain is something that is happening in Canada at the moment because of the lower pay, the higher income taxes, people generally will come to Canada, get a training, get a qualification, and then move down for the most part to the US where the paycheck is higher and the taxes are relatively lower. Hence, they're bringing much more money into their families to take care of their children. As you can see right here, you see that brain drain is a practice of workers obtaining their certifications in Canada and then moving down to the US. And you see each year, Canada loses approximately 7% of its population of these intellectual people down to the US, which is really a sad and a devastating condition. We should really work hard to change this, to keep these people. I myself working in a startup environment and supporting companies. A majority of the time, the companies will come to us or talk to us, but then they go do the stuff and register their IPs, intellectual properties in the US, and we end up losing these intellectual properties. I think we need to do a lot of work in this front. I'll talk about is it's inevitable, the weather, right? A lot of people, they hate Canada because it's so cold. Yeah, for real, it's actually very cold. If you look at the winters right here in Canada, winters are very cold. You can take a little bit look at this picture of how sometimes the winters look like. That doesn't mean that that's how it is all year round. It's just, it happens like that sometimes. I personally, I like cold weather. I don't have a problem with it, but there's many people who get seasonal depression because the weather becomes just everywhere becomes white and dull. The next points on this list are a little bit controversial. I don't want to dive deep into that for the time being, but then there is a lot of, wokeism, as I'll call it, going on in Canada where, people are literally very scared to talk because, transgenderism, bisexuality, for people who have a sense in regarding these things but as a physician, I think that a child is still developing their brains, is still developing their mental capacity, and they don't really have that autonomy to be able to decide on what should happen to them, especially when they're still pretty tender. They can't really, make a sound decision. But here, people are just very careful. People tend to stay superficial because they're scared to hurt you. They don't know what your religion is. They don't know what your, sexual orientation is. And so it's just everyone is trying to play safe and not get into, someone's borders. And that makes it so hard to build, a really strong relationship. Again, I said it depends on everyone in terms of exactly how they perceive these things that happened during COVID, like and the truck drivers when they were striking, freezing of people's bank accounts, scandals that happened in the House of Commons, letting people who were not worthy to actually come into the House of Commons, which is putting Canada on the backstage and saying but what's going on. And all these things are considerable. If someone is not really happy with those and doesn't feel comfortable in such kinds of environment, it might be a time to leave or even a time not to move at all here. There's also a huge issue with jobs. I'm not gonna lie, there's a big problem with jobs, and people think that they can come here and just get jobs. You can leave from your home country and you come here and you've got a PhD, you've got other qualifications that are super strong, and you are really good in your home country. You are running a 7-8 figure business, and then you move to Canada, and then you're handed over the keys of a Corolla to say, hey man, you should drive Uber. And then you're like, oh wow, but I have a PhD, and someone responds, yeah, but at least you're riding in a Corolla. You want to consider that your qualification without Canadian experience. Not in all situations, again, hear me out clearly, but sometimes some employers are like, oh, for you to hold high paying positions, you need Canadian experience. And for you to get Canadian experience, you got to work. And for you to work, you need Canadian experience. A path for them to get into your system and help and support and bring down the wait times for procedures. And I couldn't finish this video by not talking about this point. There is a huge problem called the opioid crisis in Canada. There's drug dealers everywhere, and there's a majority of them that are hurting themselves. It's really bad in some cities. And if you look at this, according to the Canadian Center on Substance Use and Addiction, you can see right here that Canada is experiencing a drug toxicity crisis that is being fueled by synthetic opioids like fentanyl. And between 2019 and 2022, there has been over 34,000 apparent opioid toxicity and death-related issues. If you're someone who is so worried about drugs and issues that are related to drugs in terms of crime, then you want to also avoid some of these major metropolitan cities. Please like, share, subscribe. Your comments are welcome, whether be it bad or whether be it good. There's no problem. It's just your point of view, and all of this is based on my point of view. Please use my affiliate link below to get this camera on Amazon. It's absolutely amazing. The lens is of high quality. You can also use my affiliate link to sign up for this Amex card if you're here in Canada, and you'll be able to get $40 every month for the next 7 months. It's really amazing. And you can also use my affiliate link to check on your credit score if you're already living in Canada, because credit scores are really important. They help the banks decide if they will give you a loan or not, especially if you want to buy a car, you want to buy a house, you want to buy anything that would need you to put a line of credit. Please, you want to use my affiliate link. And thank you so much. Until then, bye-bye.